Okay, so the focus of today's session, our focused session, is going over the grants and our financial aid options. So I kind of have a mixed group joining me here today. So this is open to everybody, whether you are interested in the John Crosland School or not. And that's where that grant information, that's helpful to anybody, whether you're attending our school or you're looking in other school directions. The financial aid options, which is going to be the second half of the presentation, is specific to JCS. And just for full transparency, the grants that I'm going to discuss are the North Carolina grants. So I have been through quite a few webinars from them. As you can imagine, it is, something that is kind of state run. And so I kind of get bits and pieces along the way. So I'm going to share everything that I currently know and can help with. And then if there are any questions that I do not go over, just put it in the chat or at the end, let me know. And if I don't know the answer, I can certainly go about doing the digging and finding those answers for you. So I am going to start just by showing this little overview. This is a document that our team created over the last couple of months because, as many of you know, when you click on any school's tuition and fees page, the first thing you see are just these large numbers. And that can be very disheartening to a lot of families and make them feel like, this school, which they think might be the best for their child, isn't in the realm of possibility. And so we put together this image, and it was created this September. And so it's an image that will be updated every September just to show that we have a wide diversity of how parents are handling their share of tuition in our school. So we do have some families who are receiving no aid or grants. That's just they're able to write the checks, and that's wonderful. But we also have over 50% of our families who are receiving some type of grant, financial aid. And we gave some sample families down here. So again, you can see that it is not a one size fits all in terms of the tuition. There are lots of different ways that people go about handling that, which is what I'm going to talk about today. So I'm going to start with the North Carolina grants and scholarships. I know that's what most of you are here to learn about. It's a beautiful program that has opened the door for so many of our families. If you see at this pie chart here, 35.1% of our families currently, as of September, were receiving just the ESA Plus grant. So that is a very large chunk of our population that are getting just one of these North Carolina grant options. So this is another visual that I created. So it's to try to help put kind of the large chunks of wording that are on the North Carolina, the NCSCAA website. They've got large chunks of writing where you can't always find the nitty-gritty important details. So just to break it down, the Opportunity Scholarship is worth $6,168. The Opportunity Scholarship is a needs-based scholarship. The ESA Plus scholarship is worth $9,000. And if you show certain designated disabilities, you may be eligible to receive up to $17,000. Now, these grants do follow a timeline. So as some of you know, with JCS, we're rolling admissions, our financial aid is rolling. That is not the case with these North Carolina grants. So the first step is to just learn about your eligibility between the two, and I'll talk about that more in just a second. The second step is getting that documents that's required, because the application opens on February 1st. And you really want to be ready come February 1st, when that application opens, to upload everything you need and hit submit. The priority deadline is March 1st. So both of these scholarships are essentially a lottery. Priority is given to families that received the scholarships in the year prior, and then it is just open to a lottery system of who is able to get that money. And so that's why you really want to be reaching that priority deadline. So I'm going to start with the Opportunity Scholarship because this one is a little bit easier to understand the requirements. So for the Opportunity Scholarship, the household must meet the household income eligibility guidelines. They must be at least 5 years old by August 31st or at least 4 by April 16th with private school administrator approval for kindergarten. For all of these North Carolina grants, whether it's the Opportunity or the North Carolina, you must live in North Carolina. So that is something that is limiting. For example, we have a handful of South Carolina families who are not eligible, but if they know they're going to be with us long-term, and they potentially consider a move because, that could potentially be $17,000 on the table. And then once you meet all of these requirements, you need to have at least one where, like I said, you've received and used the Opportunity Scholarship funds in previous years, attended a North Carolina public school or Department of Defense school in North Carolina as a full-time student, entering kindergarten, first grade, or second grade, in foster care or adopted within the last year, or has a parent on full active military duty. So you will see, and this has been something that has been a difficulty for some families in the past, where they have been awarded the opportunity, but they realize that they've never attended a North Carolina public school. Their child has been in private school the entire time, and then they are not eligible for this Opportunity Scholarship. So even though this one is needs-based, you don't need to present any kind of IEP or testing. You do need to have at least attended 1 year in a North Carolina public school. Now, I know I am moving kind of quickly. I do have my chat box pulled up. So if at any time you have a question that you want to ask or you want to unmute, please, by all means, do so. Are there any questions about the Opportunity Scholarship before I jump into the ESA Plus, which is a little bit more specific? Again, Opportunity is $6,168. All right, then we're going to take a look at the ESA Plus. So ESA Plus is for a child with a disability who requires special education. So for the ESA Plus scholarship, your child does not need to have attended a North Carolina public school. So you'll recall, as I was just saying, for this one, you need to show that at some point they'll ask for a report card or some kind of evidence that they attended a North Carolina public school. That is not the case for ESA Plus. However, you do need to have an IEP eligibility determination from a North Carolina public school. So in other words, whether you have always been in a private school or if you've attended a public school, you need to have an IEP from a North Carolina school. But this is something that you can get regardless of whether you are currently attending that school or not. So there is a process, and there are links here, and I will be sending out this PowerPoint at the end of the presentation. But you can email your local school that you are zoned for, email their principal, and request the process of an IEP to begin. And again, these links, when I email them out, will go through that more in depth. But then the school has 90 days to respond, and they have to go through that process for you. So even though you are not enrolled in the school, if you reach out to that principal of your zoned school and request that IEP process, it can be done. And so that's why, and I'm going to flip back for just a second. When I said step 2 is beginning to gather those documents, it's because I think we all know how long sometimes processes can work. Like an IEP process, for those of you who have had it already, or you've had friends who have gone through that process, it can take some time for all of the observations and the documents and the meetings, for all of that to take place. So ideally, you would go ahead and already start that process now, so that come February, you're not stressed about time, you have it already together, and you can just hit submit on the application. So moving on, for the requirements, at least 5 years old by August 31st or 4 by April 16th with private school administrator approval. Again, you have to live in North Carolina for this grant, has not graduated from high school, has not enrolled in a post-secondary institution, and eligible to attend public school in North Carolina. Now, the reason that the ESA kind of goes a step further is that students who meet these criteria and have one of the following below designated as the primary or secondary disability on the IEP may be eligible for the higher scholarship. So if you just meet these basic requirements for the scholarship, that would be the $9,000 reward. If you have one of these diagnoses as the primary or secondary, and that's demonstrated in the IEP, you may be eligible for the $17,000 award. So again, I will email this PowerPoint out. The requesting the IEP is the hurdle, the biggest hurdle that families have, because, you know, it's intimidating. You're like, my kid doesn't go to that school. It's an intimidating process. It really is as simple as putting together that email to the principal of your zone school and just saying, I would like this eligibility determination process to begin, and then they have that 90 days to comply. So before I move into some of the fast facts, are there any specific questions about the ESA? Did I move through anything too quickly? If you are awarded, so let's say that March 1st priority deadline passes, you learn that you have been awarded the ESA Plus scholarship. That does not mean that you can let that IEP just fall to the wayside, or your testing kind of fall to the wayside because you're secure. Every 3 years, you need to document continuing eligibility. So I just tell families that once you have gotten that IEP process and it's secured, just do what you need to do to keep it up to date. It's the, I think, path of least resistance in the way to show continuing eligibility. Just stay up to date on it. That would align with when you need to demonstrate that continuing eligibility. So I had a great question. It says that as a lottery, obviously everyone that applies isn't awarded. What percentage of families are expected? That is a fabulous question. I do not want to pretend like I know it all and know the percentage of families. I can tell you that this program, it has been going on for about 3 years now, and every single year they receive more money than they previously had the year before that. So for example, this year, they're typically done awarding pretty quickly. They continued and were awarding new families all the way into, I'd say, July this year, because they unexpectedly received much more money into their pot than they thought they were going to, kind of late in the game. So I think that we've only seen the number of families who are receiving these awards grow substantially. I would definitely, now you've got me interested, and I will definitely kind of dig into the website and maybe reach out to some of my contacts and see if I can get an exact percentage, because that's a wonderful question, but I do not know the specific number there. Another question that families often have about this is, if they are awarded, then what happens? So if you are awarded, you get a MyPortal login, and that is where, you know, it comes to, you have to go in and select the school. So you get an email saying you have been awarded, and you select the school that you would like that money to go to. Once you have selected the school, then it kind of goes on to my plate, where I have to go in and certify that your child is going to be a student at our school. I endorse that money, and then you go in and endorse it as well. And then that money is directly dispersed to the school. So you don't have to worry about that processing of checks or handing off of money. It is directly dispersed to us. And then again, this is something that I would strongly suggest you do when I send this PowerPoint out in just a little bit. You can be notified to any application timelines. They will give you kind of a heads up when that application is about to open. So I went ahead and linked this here to make that easier for you. I strongly suggest you just go ahead and go in and get those alerts for when that application opens. Okay, so kind of some of the most common questions that I've experienced in this process. So if you select a school when you are initially awarded, A lot of families go, well, can that be changed? What if we withdraw and go somewhere else, or we don't get accepted like we thought we were going to? You have time to change that school. So parents can change the school choice in my portal until August 1st. So let's say you're going through this POP process in February, March, and you don't know if you've officially been accepted to that school for the next school year. You would go in and put in the school that you are going through that process that you think it will go to, and then you do have time to change it. I kind of already went over this, but again, if a student must have a North Carolina IEP to apply, how would they get that if they haven't been in the school? The local public school can assess the student to determine if the student has a disability. Most of the time, you are directly emailing the principal of that school, but you can contact the Exceptional Children's Assistance Center to get more guidance on this. Again, there's 2 links in this PowerPoint that give you very specific details about how to do that. A lot of families ask, how does the lottery apply to siblings and twins? Students in the same family will receive 1 lottery number. So if you have multiple children and you're awarded, you can assume that you would receive that for all of your children. It wouldn't be split. Okay, so it is about 8:50 right now, and I told you I was going to stop right at 9. Are there any questions that I did not cover with the North Carolina grants? I know that was a very, very quick overview. But I'm going to pause for just a second to see if there is anything that I missed in that overview.
Hey, Carrie.
Yes.
So for the IEPs, like, you know, how much do we have to worry about getting the IEP packed with everything that we might think that our children would need were they to go to a public school versus just making sure that the IEP has the top line diagnosis defined? You know, like is there a chance to go back and modify those IEPs if we were to send our kids to a public school? I'm just trying to figure out, you know, do we just kind of get the quickest way to make sure that the diagnosis is in there by February 1st? Is that the most important thing, or is the most important thing to get the IEP as right as we possibly can with all the details now?
Right, and I can definitely give you my opinion on that. That would be something that you as a family would have to decide, because of course you never know what's going to happen. That's kind of like my reasoning in telling parents, once they have that IEP secured, to kind of never let it fall to the wayside and expire, because you never know. You know, things may change and you might need to unexpectedly withdraw from JCS and go into public school, and you just don't know. If you're looking at trying to be prepared for that February 1st deadline, which realistically is right around the corner, and unfortunately we're at that time of the year in public schools where they are also going through that re-eligibility determination for the students that are currently enrolled. So those special ed departments are kind of just bombarded with that work. I think getting the process started, you would be more concerned with, let's just get it on paper. And then you can always go back and review and call for meetings and kind of fight for those needs and those again, nitty-gritty details. And even with the IEP, like I said, you are required to have those meetings periodically along the way for renewal. So that would naturally be a time to request more accommodations and things like that throughout the process. That's already built in. But yes, again, in my opinion, the first go around, if you are solely doing this for the grants, I'd be more concerned about getting it done before February.
Yeah. Okay. That was what I assumed. And we've got it open. And we've had it, you know, we've been working with them for a while. It just feels like you could iterate on these things forever.
Yes.
with these folks. That's why I'm just like, okay, we just got to call it done here at some point so that we can apply for this thing. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I completely know they can go on forever, it seems like. So I also had a question about a charter school IEP working as the public school. So with the North Carolina grants, it would depend. So sometimes charter schools are classified also as North Carolina public schools, but sometimes the charter schools are not classified as that. So it really depends on which school specifically you are looking at, to see if it would be eligible or not. So that would, and just to point this out, because it was very tiny, again, I'm giving you a very, very brief overview, but again, in this PowerPoint that I'm going to send out in just a little bit, I have linked more of those frequently asked questions down here at the bottom. This has pages and pages and pages of those questions. I tried to just nitpick the ones that I have heard families ask me the most often, but by all means, there are a lot more that are covered, and I will send that out. Okay, so it is 8:53, so I do just want to briefly cover the John Crosland School specific financial aid so we don't run out of time. So the North Carolina grants, they run on the timeline, they are lottery based, they have very, very specific eligibility requirements that must be met. The John Crosland School also has its own financial aid system that is separate from these grants. So if you go on our website and you click on our assistance page, you will see this image here that is a link to FAST, Financial Aid for School Tuition. And in the next couple of months, we're actually going to be transitioning out of this program and into a new one, but that is a topic for another time. For the time being, we are still going to be living in FAST. And what FAST does is essentially it walks you through uploading your tax documents, and then it verifies that information. It gives us a projected award amount, and then our admissions committee meets and looks at all of that information, looks at the funds that we do still have remaining in our financial aid bucket, and then we determine if we can offer an award. So it's a little bit less, the North Carolina grants are very specific in what you must do and the steps you must follow. The financial aid from our school isn't quite that structured. And when you're looking at just kind of timelines and things to keep in mind, so for our returning families, just like with the North Carolina grants, they're kind of receiving that priority if they've had financial aid in the past, just because of the timeline. So in February 1st, re-enrollment contracts are mailed to parents. Also on February 1st, the FAST system opens for the next school year. So we set our tuition for the next school year around January. So that's why we have to wait for that FAST system to open until February 1st. February 23rd, re-enrollment contracts are due. March 1st, financial aid assistance applications deadline to FAST for the first round of awards. So again, even though ours is rolling admissions for the financial aid and you can apply for and receive it at any time in the school year, obviously we have the most funds left in that bucket for the next year at the beginning of that timeline process. So if you are applying to us, let's say in December of this year and wanting financial aid, it would solely depend on whether we still have funds. I will say that 99% of the time we do still have funds in that bucket. Like for example, right now, currently where we stand, we do still have funds. So if families are applying to us and they want financial aid, I say apply, because you never know, and we can see what we can do there. So like I said, for new families, it is rolling financial aid application. You can apply at any time. The financial aid committee meets and determines award if applicable. And then after that committee meeting, the financial assistance award letter is mailed to the parents to sign. So again, I know that was a very quick overview of that as well. Like I said, the financial aid for the John Crosland School really is as simple as completing that FAST application. And the FAST is a third-party system. So if you're having questions like, do I have the right documents? I don't have this tax form completed yet. What do I need to do? That program itself does a fabulous job of walking you through that process. But I also can go in and see if there are certain documents missing, if I need to approve the year prior to be submitted instead of the current year because you haven't completed that yet. So I do kind of have insight into that. And there's some leeway into what we are able to do if you do have some questions or concerns about what documents you do currently have. All right. I feel like that was really quick for a lot of really heavy information. Again, I am going to send this entire PowerPoint out in email. Thank you so much for registering ahead of time. So I have your email and can send this out to you. If you are a currently enrolled student or family, this is also going to be in the InOrbit in one of the upcoming issues. So you know, if you're like me and your email is just bombarded with things that sometimes get lost, it will also be linked in the InOrbit. If you are a family who is not currently enrolled and you're just trying to learn more, definitely you can reach out to me after this meeting, and I am more than happy to try to help in any way that I can. Again, I am Carrie Coffin. I don't know if I even started the presentation by saying that, but I am Carrie Coffin, Director of Enrollment Management. My name, my email, and my number are all listed on the website if you have any specific questions. So it is 8:58. If you, again, I want to be respectful of your time. If you need to log off and move on about your day, you are more than welcome. I will stay on for a couple of minutes afterwards to try to answer specific questions. And I will stop the recording for those specific questions, just so you know. Thank you so
Carrie.
much. Thank you.
Hey, Carrie, this is Steve.